Hey guys, welcome back to the course. In last episode, we talked about a little bit of UI. We started doing some UI, so integrated with score. The score changes once we collect apples, and as you can tell, it just goes on like that, on and on and on. What we're going to be doing today is create some kind of menu scene, and then once we're done with the menu scene, we'll come back to this one, polish it a bit, maybe extend the grid in X so we have a bigger view on it, and then we'll just move on to just starting to think about publishing your game and just, like exporting it to other people. So let's go back to what we said we were doing. We were doing a menu scene. So here's what I'm going to be doing. Right now, this scene, the one we saved at the very beginning when we started making our project, this scene is called game. As you can tell at the very top right there, where my cursor is, not where my finger is, it says game, right? So if we double click on menu, we pretty much lose everything. That's our menu scene. It has nothing in it. It has like those three cubes we had initially. Now, since we learned how to do a little bit of UI, let's keep progressing on that. And let me just mention that really quickly. The UI you've made in the game is not the same as the UI you're going to be making in the menu scene. They're on different scenes, so technically they are different. So they're it's not the same thing. It's not gonna carry on throughout the whole game. So every scene has their own specific canvas. You can have multiple canvas as well. Something I didn't mention. You can have like two canvas. You can have one that is just overlay stuff, display your score, your health bar, information on the target, but you could also have like a 3D canvas, which is a little bit more advanced, and that could be floating around in your world, like popping panels in front of, say, an object when you're mouse overing it, something like that. Of course, a little bit more advanced topic that we'll cover in a future course. But right now, let's talk about our game scene, our menu scene. I've created a menu scene. The menu scene is the one we had before, and it's empty right now. It has a main camera, it has a directional light. We are going to right click, create a, let's go with a simple play button. Now, just like we did in the last time, we are going to modify the canvas scaling property. So I'm going to go here under canvas scaler, make sure it scales on screen size, put that on say 920 by 1080, which is a really common 16:9 resolution. So we'll put that here, and then we'll just take our button, anchor it wherever you want. So at this point, I just want mine to be, say, in the center of the screen. So I'll just click here, shift click, put everything on 0, and then we'll modify the width and the height. So maybe think about having a button that is quite obvious, so maybe 500 pixel in width and say 75 in height. In the center of that button, well, when we create a button, it creates more than one thing. It creates an image with a button component, like you can see, but it also creates a text component beneath it. As you can tell, that's our button, and then there is a text on top of it. You can zoom in on the text, you can scale it up, you can change the size, also able to change the text, obviously, just like we saw in the last episode, so of course you can change the bold, all that kind of stuff, you can change it through the component. Now, what we are interested in right here is the button component. That's the one that has an event when you click on it. So when you click on that button, something is bound to happen. Let's have a look down here what exactly happens. So we're just looking at the component here on the right hand side. We have, okay, is this button interactable right now? As you can tell, if it's not, then it has a different skin on it. And then what kind of graphic are we putting in here? Like what kind of transition? Let me just show you really quickly what this does. So basically transition, you have like multiple mode. This one is called color tint. So when you just highlight, you press or the button is disabled, it's going to change. Right now it's really slight changes. You can barely see it. When I click it, you can tell that the pressed color is being activated, so this one. And when it's disabled, it takes on the disabled color with a little bit of alpha on it. You can actually modify the alpha right here, as you can tell. Now I'm only modifying the disabled color, but that's because my button is disabled. Now, of course, if it's not disabled, it's going to take on the normal color. If I highlight it, it's going to take on the highlight color. In this case, let's put red. And as you can tell, when I highlight it, when I just mouse over, it highlights the button. And if I press it, it goes to gray. So that is one of the mode. It's called color tint. You can also have a sprite swap. So when it's normal, it's going to be like assuming this graphic. When it's highlighted, it's going to be assuming, say, this one for some reason. And it's going to change the sprite. So a lot of people do that. They just have like, they've made their art for buttons that are idle. They've made art for buttons that are highlighted and art for buttons that are pressed, basically. And they just put it in those little field here. There's also animation if you want to animate this might be a little bit too complicated for now. I'll just leave it on color tint, basically. And when I highlight it, maybe put some kind of bluish color or greenish color. Who knows? So that's my button. It has those like settings. What we are really interested in, like I mentioned, is when we click on it, there should be an action. There should be something going on. And you can find all the action that are happening down here on this little window here, the on-click window. But now this thing is empty. It says the list is empty, so you basically have to add your own function in there. And now this is a step that you tend to forget at first. Let me just show you exactly how you're going to be adding those functions. First, you need a function, right? So you need something to be called code-wise. You need to have like some code somewhere that is going to be ran when you click on the button. Let's actually open up a new script. Actually, we need a new script in this case. So let's go here, right-click on script, call this a menu. Let's just call it menu, right? So nothing too complicated. Now, this could have been the snake script. This could have been pretty much anything, as long as it's going to be inside of the scene we're working on. So actually, the snake would not work because the snake is inside of the game scene, and I need something to be inside of the menu scene, the same scene as the button. So in this case, I am going to create a public function, and this one needs to be public. To access it from a button, to access it from outside, you will need this to be public. And we will call this something like on play button click. Now, this is not like a special name. This is not a Unity callback. This is just a name I've given. So you could have been calling this function. If you want to call it Dave, feel free to do so. Mine is called on play button click. Now we need to call this function from outside. We need to call it from the button actually. Just to test this out, I'll be doing a debug.log here, and I'll say play button has been clicked. And we're going to wrap this up and actually attempt to plug this function inside of the button. So first, you need your menu script to be somewhere on the scene, anywhere really. It could be in your main camera, it could be on your light. You just need to have a reference to that script, and that script needs to be active in the scene somewhere. So for the purpose of this, I'll be using it on my main camera because I know I'm always going to have like some kind of camera laying around. I'm not accidentally going to delete that object. So I'll take my menu, drag and drop it here, and now my menu also has a component. Sorry, my camera also has a component called menu. And if we head over to our canvas, find our button component, we add an actual on-click event. Now it asks you for an object. It doesn't ask you for a specific script. It asks you for an object. In our case, we want to drag the main camera in here. And check this out. This is exactly what it does. It takes the main camera and then it lists all the components that the camera has. So the camera has a game object, it has a transform, it has a camera component, has a GUI layer, audio listener, but it also has our component we created, the menu component. And then it also has a lot of other things we don't know inside of it. Those are all things we inherit from modal behavior, which is again a topic we will cover in the future. But more specifically, there is our public function called onPlayButtonClick. And if we just click it and then try it out, in the console at the bottom here, play button has been clicked. So our code is being run, and we know it's being run because we get the feedback out of it. This code is actually being run in the game. So this is exactly what we need. Now, at this point, all there is left to do is actually start the game, right? So how do we go about changing scene? Now, if you're using a version of Unity that is, I think it's prior to Unity 4, you're going to be using this call right here, application.load level, and then you send in the name of your level, in our case, game. But now this is no longer true if you're using a newer version of Unity because they changed this and now load level has become obsolete. What you need to do in the new one is you do a Unity engine, so Unity engine, scene management, scene manager, load scene, and then the name. I know it's quite different, it's a lot longer. What you could do is actually use up here, do using Unity engine dot scene manager, scene management, so you don't have to put that in front of it. So it's really up to you. Sometimes if I'm only going to be doing like a single call to this, a single call to a load scene, sometimes I like to leave it and not use this using statement. There isn't really a lot of difference, to be honest. But I'm simply going to leave it like that for people that sometimes misses the using statement. So we're going to be loading the scene right off the get-go. Let's actually try this out, see if it works. And as you can tell down here, it's going to say, well, we were unable to actually load the game scene because it has not been added to the build settings, which basically means you need to go under build settings, or you can do Control-Shift-B, and then add scenes in our build. This is your final build, kind of. This is where you go to actually build your game and then publish it to other platforms. Say you're building for Android, WebGL, whatever, right? So this is where you go, but you need to have some scenes in your build. Now let me explain to you why exactly, and it does make a lot of sense. So often when you're on a big production, when like a lot of people, you're making a game with a lot of people, we often create those kind of test scene, like a gym where you would test out your car. Can you actually drive like this? Can you go like up steeps that are 45 degrees and more? You have some kind of test environment, like developer maps, and you don't necessarily want those to be shipped with the final game. So having this kind of barrier here, this kind of filter when you're about to publish, is always very good, and that's pretty much why it's here right now. So we decide which scenes are going to go in the final build. In this case, menu and game are the only scene we have, and we're going to be using them both while we play. So versus when you're in a big production with a lot of people, you might want to include some other scenes, such as this special gem where we test this very kind of special event here, test shaders, whatever. You might want to have more scenes in that case, but since we don't have any more scenes, let's just use this one. When we click on play, we are now headed in the game, and you're going to see that the lighting is a lot different than when we actually play, and that is because the lighting has not been baked, which is not going to happen with the final build. With the final build, the lighting is going to be just fine, so don't worry about that if that is your main concern. The lighting is going to be fine. Now, let's quickly just take this and actually add a back button from this scene to the actual, to the actual menu scene, so we can go back. So let's quickly do that. We're going to head over to our game scene, and inside of our game scene, we're going to right click on the canvas, create a new button, and this one we might anchor it at the very top left, who knows. Maybe give it a small margin of say 50 and minus 50. The width might be a little bit smaller this time. Let's do 150, 150, make it square for some reason, and then maybe just input some kind of character like that to mention that it goes back to our previous scene. That's really some cheap UI, but I don't have any art on me, so that's how we'll do it. And as you can tell now, this button, we can name it to back to menu button. When we press on play, we click on it. It does react, it's just that it doesn't do anything because no event was linked to that. No function was connected to this button. And if you guys remember how to do it, well, first we need that function. We need to actually have some code running. And let's actually take that line of code, or take this whole function. Let's go on our snake function, or sorry, snake class, and paste it at the bottom. We're going to say on back button click. And instead of doing scene management, load scene game, we're going to be doing load scene on menu. So instead of going to the game scene, we're going to the menu scene. Simple enough. Now we need to connect it. At this point, if you guys remember, what we need to do is to give it an object. What object are we going to give it? We are going to give it the object that contains our component, and in that case that would be the snake, because we're doing that in snake.cs, and our snake is this little guy right here. So this is the object that contains our code. Let's go to our back to menu, drag and drop snake, and then we'll find, okay, so we gotta go under snake, and we have a on back button click. Let's actually run this, and as you can tell, we now have a flow in between these two scenes. So something really simple, and it works like a charm. So that is actually where I am going to end today's episode. We're almost done with this. We are almost ready to wrap it up. I'd just like to clean it up a little bit more, change the grid size. I don't like the grid size. I like it to be a little bit bigger, of course. And then we'll try to actually publish this to an actual .exe, so you can play on, well, on Windows basically. But it would also work on Mac. It would also work on Linux. So I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you learned something, and if you did, please just leave me a like on the video. I'll always appreciate that quite a lot. Check out the Facebook page, the Patreon page, and I will see you guys in the next one. Cheers.